Welcome to this channel. In this video, I would like to show you the braking system of automotive cars. Whenever you see the front wheel of a car removed, you will see this kind of system which is attached to the axle of the car. So this is called disc brakes. So this basically works on the principle of a disc which is attached to the wheel of the car, and the disc is basically stopped by braking pads which is operated by calipers. So now you see the mechanic is trying to remove the caliper. So this is the caliper part which is surrounding the disc. And inside the caliper are the braking pads. So this is the caliper here just removed, and you can see that the braking pads he's trying to remove. So these pads basically rub against the disc, and because of the tremendous amount of friction that is created, the wheel will stop. So this is the old pad which he has just removed, and he is showing that there are a lot of wear that has taken place. That means this pad is now worn out and it needs to be replaced. So these brake pads are basically composed of two parts. The first part is the backing, which is metallic, and the second part, which is the friction part, is made of different materials. It can be metallic or it can be non-metallic. Since the brake pad rubs against the disc, there can be some amount of wear of the pad as well as the disc. The aim is that the disc should not wear, only the pad should wear. So this way the pad can be changed frequently, which is much cheaper than changing the whole disc. Also, the type of material of the brake pad will determine what kind of friction force will be generated. Too much friction force is also not considered good, and very little friction means there will be slippage and the car will not stop. So in general, the coefficient of friction between the brake pad and the disc is controlled within 0.3 to 0.5. So we can see that the tribology between the brake pad and the disc plays an important role in the braking system. So tribology is the science and technology of friction, wear and lubrication. So whenever we apply the brake, basically the hydraulic fluid or the braking fluid flows in the system, and when we apply the brake, the fluid pushes the piston of the caliper. So this piston will make the caliper move from both sides, and the brake pads will be pushed. So this will push the brake pads on both sides, and therefore it will introduce frictional force on the disc. Because of this frictional force, tremendous amount of heat will be generated, and the disc has to dissipate those heats. So the brake pad material must have enough thermal stability so that it does not get affected by the heat created. Otherwise, the friction performance will reduce. So the brake pads contain many kinds of materials, both metallic and non-metallic, and it is like a composite of phenolic resin. So phenolic resin is the matrix, and in this matrix many types of materials are added. For example, different types of fibers like carbon fiber or aramid fibers, some metallic particles like bronze particles, steel flakes. So these kind of materials are added to obtain a good amount of frictional performance with good thermal conductivity and wear resistance. Some of the brake pads may lose their performance over time which is called brake fading. And this kind of brake fading can happen in non-metallic type of brake pads more than the metallic parts. However, for general car, we prefer non-metallic type of brake pads because it has got greater life for the disc, because disc will not wear out. So this is the old brake disc just now removed from the axle, and you can see that it has got many wear marks. So these wear marks are created because of the rubbing of the brake pad on the disc. So these are the circular marks, and this one is a ground disc. So generally during the servicing, the technician will grind the surface. So now you see that those lines are removed. We do not see any wear mark. So this is a ground disc. So now this disc is going to be installed back. So basically the disc will be attached to the wheel. So when the wheel rotates, the disc rotates along with the wheel. So when the calipers will push the brake pad on the disc, it will stop the disc, and thereby the wheel will also stop. So now the mechanic is trying to install the caliper back again. The disc is made of cast iron, and as you can see, it has many vents. These vents are meant for cooling purpose. So during the braking action, lot of heat is generated, and this heat can be dissipated through these vents. The disc braking system was invented in 1902, but it was not very popular until 1953. In this year, the Jaguar racing team won a car race using disc brake equipped with cars, with much of the credit being given to the brake's superior performance over rivals equipped with drum brakes. Since then, many cars began using disc brakes over drum brake systems. The advantages of disc brakes over drum brakes are fewer moving parts, longer life due to fewer moving parts, and more effective heat dissipation. Friction pads are easily accessible for replacement or inspection, easy access to calipers for cleaning and maintenance. Entire calipers can be removed for maintenance without removing rotor and hub. So only the calipers are attached to the axle of the front wheel, and the disc will be attached to the wheel, because the disc has to rotate along with the wheel. So these are the clips onto which the brake pad will be attached. So these are the new brake pads that the mechanic is going to install. So this is the back side or the metal side, and on the other side is the braking side. So whenever you are changing the brake pad, it is important that you change both of them, not just on one side, because if we change only the one side, then there will be some problem in the performance. Because the thickness of the brake pad matters. How we, when we press the brake, when we press the brake pedal, performance of the braking will depend upon the thickness of the brake pads. So the mechanic is now pushing the piston back in its original place. So now he has installed the calipers along with the brake pads. So whenever we press the brake pedal, basically the hydraulic fluid will push the piston, and because of the push of the piston, the calipers will push the brake pads from both sides. So now we can install the wheel. So this disc brake system was in the front wheel of this car, and now we will see on the back wheel or the rear wheels. So on the rear side of this car, we can see this kind of brake system, which is different from the disc type. So this brake system is known as drum brake. So here basically we have got a drum which he is trying to remove, and the friction material will rub against the drum. The drum is attached to the wheel. So when the drum stops, the wheel will stop. So here you can see the brake lining material, which is in the form of a curve. And this brake lining is attached to the piston. So piston is on the top, and when we press the brake pedal, the hydraulic fluid will pass into the piston, and the piston will push the brake lining material towards the drum. So a lot of dust is created because of the frictional material wear. The frictional material will wear out as the brake is applied, and therefore a lot of dust is produced, and so the technician is trying to clean the dust material. And actually these kind of dust materials are big hazard for environment, and therefore it is important that the brake materials have materials which are not environmentally damaging. So for example, in olden brake pads, asbestos was used, but nowadays asbestos has been banned. It is not used in braking material because the dust particle which comes out will contain asbestos, which is very harmful for the human health. Nowadays even copper is also banned, so even copper particles are not used. So the research is always going on to find out the best material for brake lining materials. The brake lining material must have very good coefficient of friction in the range of 0.3 to 0.5. It should have low wear, and it should have good thermal conductivity, so that even when the brake pad gets heated up, it should still work fine. Another property it should have is both in wet as well as in dry condition, it should have consistent coefficient of friction. So this is the drum part, and he is trying to clean the drum part. So the drum will be attached or fixed to the wheel. So the drum rotates as the wheel rotates. Now the technician is trying to clean the brake lining material, because over the years of use, lot of wear particles have been accumulated, and this has reduced the functioning of the brake. So in order to refresh this surface, he is using abrasive paper, and he is trying to remove all the wear particles and any kind of coating that has been created on the brake lining material. So this brake lining is still good enough for use, so he is not going to change it. Similarly, he is doing the same thing on the other side of the brake lining material. So as you can see, the brake lining materials are on both sides, one on the front side and another on the back side. The drum brake was first used in 1900. Advantages of drum brakes are less expensive to produce, less maintenance and better corrosion protection, higher friction torques as the friction pad presses against the outer circumference of the disc, greater friction area of the brake lining, hence less frequent change required. Another important aspect is that the drum brake also provides the facility for parking brake. This is Also an emergency brake which operates without the use of hydraulics. It operates by a series of steel cables that are connected to a hand lever. Now he will do similar kind of cleaning process for the drum, because the wear particles from the brake material also makes a coating on the drum. So he is trying to refresh the surface by removing those coatings that has been deposited on the drum. So he is cleaning only the surface where the brake lining material rubs against the drum. Now he is placing the drum back in the axle of the car, and as you can see there are 4 bolts. So the wheel will be attached to these 4 bolts, and along with the wheel the drum will be tightened. So the drum basically will rotate along with the wheel. Another advantage of drum brake is that since it is covered, it produces less particulate matter, and therefore drum brakes are often used for heavy duty vehicles. So now the wheel can be attached back in the axle. So in this video you have seen 2 types of brake system. So one was the disc type, where we have the disc and the calipers, and the calipers contain 2 brake pads, and using these brake pads you can apply the frictional force. On the rear side of this car we have got the drum type of brake system, in which the brake pad actually rubs against a drum and the drum is attached to the wheel. So that is how the braking system works in this case. In some cars you will see the disc type brakes are on both in the front as well as on the rear wheels. So those are generally high performance and rather expensive cars. For smaller cars like this one, the drum brake system can also work quite fine. So here you can see where the brake fluid is kept. This is basically a hydraulic fluid. So this is the small container where the braking fluid is added. So here we can see that the brake fluid is still there, so we do not need to add more brake fluid. So thank you very much for watching this video, and if you have any comment, please do write them down below in the comment section. Thank you.